Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome to Giga-Texas. It's the 7th of December 2022 and a Wednesday. And today I'm across the highway. As you can see behind me, a lot of the activity that's going on in this southwest clearing location. First of all, I was able to start a little bit earlier today, and we look inside the casting machine structure to get a little bit of an idea of what's going on inside there. Sadly, no 9,000 ton Giga Press that I can see. However, the foundations for those Giga Presses appear to be complete, which is great. The other thing I want to talk about is this construction site right behind me. As you can see by this image here, it's on that southwest corner across the highway, and I've been monitoring this for quite some time, and it's got this staging area as well. And been wondering what exactly this is going to be for. But as you can see here, we can look at this permit, and this permit was filed and accepted on the 28th of October. And it's for the West Support Facility, which will include a very large logistics yard and also parking. And that's why we're seeing the resumed earthwork to reclaim the hills and ponds all over the place. Now, the limits of construction for this area is about 240 acres, or roughly 97 hectares, as you can see by this information. And also, as you can see by this image, this is what the general layout of this work area is going to be, and you can see that it makes up that approximately 240 acres. So it's interesting to see, and it's something to be monitoring as we see more construction on this side of the road. The last thing I want to talk about real quick is just a follow-up with some information about the construction up at the electrical switch yard. And we'll get into that in just a second. But before we do, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope you have a great week. Let's talk about electrical switch yard.
For today's discussion, I'd like to revisit a topic that I brought up on my 5 December video, where I noticed that they had not only these trenches, but they were installing this metal scaffolding on top of some lining and also some gravel mix in these trenches. And I asked if anybody would be able to provide some information about what they are. And fortunately, which is one of the great things about this community, I was able to get some information from one of my viewers. In this case, it was Sasquatch's cousin 33 that provided some of the information and insights as to what is going on, and I very much appreciate that. So let's go through some of the highlights of the information provided by my viewer. He said that the trenches constructed at the substation are cable trays, or in this case, cable trenches. And this is a way to help organize all of the various connections, power lines, and so forth in a very efficient way. The equipment, the control rooms, the power transformers, disconnect switches, everything, as mentioned, will have control and power cables run to them, similar to what you will see with this dotted line example. And all of them should be just under the ground. The advantages of making the trays flush with the finish grade is more for the ease of work around with the crews, with vehicles, and it will help make them accessible but not really a obstruction. The white gravel that you see piled up here is probably insulating gravel. In the inset photo, you can see how, in addition to liners, they put the gravel at the base of the trenches. This is to help insulate the ground for the safety of the workers if for some reason there were a fault. And in addition, the rest of the switchyard itself will have this gravel spread over the entire grade, probably as the last step, because he thinks that the pile there today is for leveling or drainage of the trench system as we see being constructed. Unfortunately, we just happen to have an excellent example right next door in the form of the temporary electrical switchyard. As you can see by the arrow, these are those cable trays as they are installed, and this is very similar to what we'll see in the new electrical switchyard, but they'll be on a larger scale. Also, the bigger arrow with the outline shows you all of that insulating gravel that has been spread onto the entire grade. We'll see something very similar in the new switchyard as well. So that's a quick recap of what we see being constructed at the electrical switchyard right now with those cable trays in the ground and how they will look using the temporary switchyard as an example. I want to say thank you again to my viewer Sasquatch's Cousin 33 for all of this information, and again to all my viewers for helping provide information and making these videos better. Thank you very much. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Good morning from Giga-Texas. I hope you enjoyed these views of the lit up cyber berms and how the factory looks at this very early morning, all lit up before the sun comes up. On the left hand side you can see the sunrise is getting ready to come over the horizon. So let's take an opportunity of this lower light and look inside the casting machine structure and see what activity is going on today. Looking into this section of the building, what we see is the two large foundations for the 9,000-ton Giga Presses have been completed, and they've also been working on some of the rails for the bridge cranes, in addition to reinforcing the tops of these concrete columns that support the rails for the bridge crane, as you can kind of see. But this is all great news. This means that all of the preliminary work necessary to be able to install those large 9,000-ton Giga Presses, which will support the Cybertruck production, have been made, and now we just have to get the actual presses here. And I keep looking for them, but as you can see inside here, they have not arrived yet. Hopefully we'll be seeing them soon now that the foundations are completed. Now on the left-hand side of the screen, as we continue to fly in this direction, you'll see the DMG Mori milling machines and also the gantry cranes that have been installed on top of them. I think there's 3 of these milling machines here, and of course the gantry cranes helps move the dies and other equipment to and from each of these milling machines. In the background you can see where they continue to work on some of the rails for the bridge crane that goes on top of the concrete columns, and then this is a really good view to show all of the reinforcements that have been made on the tops of those concrete columns throughout the entire facility to help ensure that the bridge crane railing system are securely mounted. You can also see inside here quite a bit of equipment, some crates, and a lot of castings on the inside, and there are some on the outside as well. But as we wrap around the corner, we're going to look inside here and see the section of this structure that has those black DMG Mori machines, so the milling machines, and the gantry cranes that are set up on those columns and those white beams. And then another good view into the back here where all of the work preparing for that 9,000-ton Giga Press has been done. But otherwise, a lot of work continuing going on within this structure to reconfigure it with all of this new machinery and prepare for additional machinery to arrive. And I just hope that you enjoy these brief views inside what I could get today with the conditions. And otherwise, just some rare shots inside to get an idea what's going on. But as I pan the drone here, you can see more of the castings on the inside and the 4 operational casting machines in the rest of this structure, and of course the castings on the outside. So let's pull back and take a look at the north end of the building. To here we've arrived back to the north end of the building. You can still see inside some of the casting machine structure on the left-hand side. Quite a bit of these materials, HVAC ducting, and other components ready to be lifted up onto these two platforms. You can kind of get an idea of what looks like inside the paint shop on top of each of these platforms. In fact, here I'll go ahead and turn the drone a little bit closer in and drop a little bit so you can see some of the activity going on inside where they're continuing to fit out the second modular paint system. As we continue towards the west, you can see the plastics manufacturing two doors that are open on the ground level, and then you can kind of see inside the fourth floor and a little bit of the third floor here of the 4680 battery cell production portion of the facility. So we're going to go around the northwest corner here, and we'll continue to fly all the way down to the south and take a look at the activity at the main entrance where a lot of changes have taken place. We're now arriving at the west main entrance with all of the reconfiguration work, but since it's got pretty decent lighting, we'll take this opportunity to not only see what the concrete removal and the stairs removal and this whole reconfiguration of this front end looks like, but I'll try to get you a little bit of views inside the lower section here of the main entrance. It's really hard to tell because the light is now starting to come up with the sunrise, but you can see some workers inside with a meeting, and you can also see the mezzanine that is being reconfigured here, making this entire entrance something completely new and different than what we saw previously from inside views. As you can tell by the stairs, they are completely gone all the way up to the perimeter grade beam of the building, and it's pretty much ready for the rest of the concrete to be removed. And then I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with not only the exterior treatment here, but the interior just inside as well. So we're going to turn the drone towards the west. We'll go across the road and we'll take a look at some of the north material staging yards and how they look today. This is the material staging location that was created about a month or month and a half ago, and it's being used to relocate some of the materials from the staging yard farther to the south, which we'll get a lot more detailed looks later in the video. But this one is continuing to have fencing installed and preparation for more material to be delivered up here. While we're here, just take a look at the gorgeous sunrise over the main factory. And I'm going to take the opportunity to give you some nice views as we relocate to the next material staging yard a little bit further to the north. So I hope you enjoy this sunrise view. This staging location has recently been reconfigured by making the grade much more level and putting this gravel aggregate on top. You can see some of the concrete materials on the left-hand side of the screen, some other of the steel materials on the right-hand side of the screen. This workshop has recently been installed, and you can see more materials are starting to arrive in this particular section. I think this and the other staging yard will be used to relocate more and more materials from that farther south yard so that they can do the construction work, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But here you see quite a bit of the steel materials continues to be delivered and stacked and stored up in this section. Again, I'm not sure where all of this steel is going to be used. It is getting to be quite a large amount, and it's something I'll continue to monitor. Now on this truck is something very interesting, and I honestly don't know what it is. Obviously it's very large. If you have any ideas of what this is, please let me know, but I'm trying to get the drone in close enough so you can get a really good view. It almost looks like it's half of something, maybe something that is a container or a bath of some sort. I don't know, but please let me know in the comments of the video if you know what that is. I would very much appreciate it. Here's a good view of the steel, the storage, the factory in the background, and the sun rising from the east over that east material staging yard. And again, I hope you enjoy these beautiful views of the sunrise. So let's go ahead and prepare to go across the road, and we'll take a look at the electrical switch yard and the activity up there today. So as I fly along the west side of the electrical switch yard towards the north, you can see the 6 of the eventual 7 A-frames that have been installed now. The rest of the steel components, the circuit breakers, some of the insulators, the bus bars, and also the disconnects. At the bottom of the screen you can see these very large pole segments that will be assembled to look very much like the power poles that we just flew over, and those will be used to help connect the high tension wires from these power lines to the electrical switch yard. But we're going to hold here for a second so you can get a good view of how this appears, and then we'll come in a little bit closer so you can see some of the activity. Now in the intro we talked a lot about the cable trays being installed along the west side of this control room. I'll give you some really good views of what it looks like today. Mostly it looks like they've got the south end of this trench installed with the steel beam parts, the liner, and the gravel, and then they're working on the farther north section now. And again, take a look at the intro if you want to get much more detailed information about what they are doing here. But this is a really good view of how this is all coming together. You can also see the crews on the right hand side with more of those steel components that will be mounted into the trench, as you see on the ones next to the control room. So as I continue to move further to the south, I can get a good idea of how the cable tray trench is coming along, the installation of the steel, some of the gravel that's being used to put in the bottom of the trench. It's for making sure it's well grounded in case there's faults, and also just the work that's going on with the steel components of the electrical switch yard itself. Now as I continue to move further to the south here, you can see the drill is still idle right in front of the drone, but also you can see that crews are continuing to prepare for the installation of transformers on these 2 large reinforced slabs. And with the way that the A-frames are already installed and what we talked about with the power lines at the north end, you can kind of get an idea of how the high tension wires will be run eventually through this electrical switch yard. So I'm going to pull back a little bit and turn towards the west just to give you a good view of the temporary electrical switch yard. Again, in the intro we talked about the cable trays and how they are installed here. This is very similar to what we see them constructing in the new electrical switch yard, but they'll be much larger than what we see here on these temporary ones. Here's some more components that will be installed in the electrical switch yard as well in this south staging location. Looks like there's a lot more of the cable tray components waiting for installation. So let's move around towards the east, and we'll take a look at what activity is going on near the battery cathode plant today. As we fly over this temporary pond that has got the liner in it, we see quite a bit of activity on this west foundation. The geopier machinery are in the foreground. It looks like most of them are kind of reclined onto the ground. It looks like right now they're not doing too much geopier, but later on today I expect that to resume. You can see the pier drilling and installation on the left with that very large yellow crane, and then the black and white crane. And you can see the footings that are being constructed right now, and they have the forms in place for most of them. Some concrete has been poured. You can even see on the tops of the concrete and where the workers are working, these are the mounts that the columns will be attached to for this new structure. So quite a bit of activity here with this particular foundation, and also some trenching on the east and north sides where they're installing these white pipes. It looks like they're starting to fill the trench back in now that most of the pipes have been installed, which is another great thing to see as far as the progress that is going on. As I reposition the drone a little bit more towards the north, I'll turn back towards the south so you can get an idea of how the trenching looks, the footings look, the pier construction that is going on as well, and also the crews working on the rebar for not only the cages for the footings but also for the piers. But this is a really good view of the activity here going on today. Now as I pivot the drone towards the east, we get a chance to see this large yellow crane. Currently is not working at the moment, but it's been used to install all of the concrete panels on the cathode plant right over where this steel structure is located. You can also see some of the iron pipes and the manifolds that the crews have been assembling and getting ready to install underneath that structure. Two of the temporary loading platforms on this side are pretty busy today. Two cranes loading up materials up onto those platforms into the second and the third floor. And then as we continue to the north, you can see this temporary structure with the scaffolding, the white roof, and all of the components underneath there protected until they can be moved inside the building. So I'm going to give you a quick tour up here at the clearing location and give you an idea of the activity with more steel brought on the left-hand side, some of the materials being stored, and also more earthwork to remove some of this hill. And this dirt is being transported to other sites around Giga-Texas for further construction. So we'll go ahead and turn back towards the battery cathode building and take a look at what's going on the east side. You can see in the foreground that continued earthwork to reclaim some of what used to be a water detention pond. You can also see crews very busy installing the wall panels on this steel structure, some interior components and interior walls as well. And I would imagine very soon the roof will be installed also. As we get a little bit closer to the midpoint, I wanted to show you inside here. This is where the 3 deep foundations were installed. It looks like they've been filled in now. You can see actually some of the equipment resting on top of that. So whatever work they needed to do to prepare those foundations, it looks like it's completed. You also see this white components on the ground that's being assembled to install some of the machinery and equipment that has been delivered here recently. So let's take a look at the east side staging and warehouse on wheels yard. There's plenty to see here today. So first I wanted to stop here to show you some of the materials being stockpiled next to one of these workshops that are made with the containers and a roof. This is another workshop that's used to do some of these steel beams and column modification and also painting. You can see them white. Some of this is being used inside the casting machine structure, and some of it's also being used for that mezzanine in that west main entrance. As I pull back over this southeast staging yard, you can see quite a bit of the workshops, materials, equipment, and vehicles, and also at the bottom of the screen, this large stack of cutout slabs that came from the south concrete lot that's been demolished. As we come in here to take a look at how the warehouse on wheels continues to expand with the number of trailers, you can also see these 4 stainless steel tanks. These used to be on the west side of the highway. They've recently been moved over here, probably because they're going to be used for construction soon and also to help clear out the work on that west side. And we'll get a lot more of the views and information on that coming up a little bit later in the video. I'm approaching the new vehicle staging and transportation lot. It is very active today. In fact, there's 3 areas around the factory that have quite a bit of Model Ys. These are getting ready to be moved or actively being moved onto these transport trucks. It appears that in this moment in time, 4 trucks are picking up the Model Ys, but the amount of trucks departing the facility has definitely had an uptick. Now, this is that small parking lot that's being reconfigured to replace that south concrete lot that's been demolished. You can see that there's quite a few more Model Ys that have now been staged here, and I think that's what this lot will eventually be once all the work is completed. And also you can see these supercharger stations being installed, and one of the cranes is getting ready to move this concrete base with some of the electronic cabinets over onto where they're going to be permanently installed. Each of these bases has 4 of the superchargers, so I think it's on the order of about 30 superchargers. Some people have asked if these are V4 or not. I can't say for sure. It might make sense to have V4s here at Giga-Texas, but most of the actual superchargers look pretty much like the normal superchargers that we see. So if you have any information or any thoughts, please let me know in the comments. As we continue to the south along the east side of the body in white, just show you some of the activity on this loading platform. Some very large green wrapped equipment is getting ready to be moved up to the 2nd floor. It's really hard to tell exactly what that is, but you can tell by the size of the truck how large it is. All of these components are part of an AIDA stamping press, and I believe there's also some additional components as well, especially the white-topped crates. But all the blue-top crates, the green, white, and blue materials next to the wall are part of that AIDA stamping press. Here's the east side staging location with all of the steel. It looks like there's also some of the blue-topped crates being put over here as well. Also, really good view of the south end with that concrete lot as it's been removed. And we'll get down closer in a bit. This clearing on the bottom right is where the horizontal drilling operation used to be. It looks like almost all of it's completed with the exception of a few small trenches on the west side. This is a really good view, much closer of the south lot. The concrete has been about 90–95% removed, as you can see. And we'll come down a little bit lower so we can get a look at the east side. Looks like there's some excavators at work here right underneath the drone, maybe also to remove some of the concrete and get ready for work. We can also see some of the dirt trucks bringing some dirt over to this section where they're doing some of the plumbing, and it's now starting to go across the road. Since it's blue, this suggests that it's water pipes that they're installing. And here's a closer in view of the AIDA stamping press materials. You can see that gantry crane has been set up. That's so that they can maneuver some of the large components onto the self-propelled modular transporters to move the components into the south end of stamping 2 for the AIDA stamping press assembly. Here's some more of the components here on the blue top crates on the right-hand side of the screen. And here's a view as we approach the south end of the building. These 2 large doors that you can just see at the right-hand side of the screen is stamping 2, and it looks like a very large white top crate has just been delivered and it's being prepared to be moved in using these 2 forklifts. This is another great sign because it shows that assembly of these machines is well underway now. The foundation works must be completed as well. which is just great to see, especially if you are a Cybertruck fan. A lot more green components getting ready to be moved up onto that temporary loading platform as well. Here's the remaining concrete section. You can see more slabs have been pulled up and are prepared for removal. A lot of these steel corrugated pipes have been delivered. It doesn't look like there's been any more, so this may be the final extent of how much is being installed in this particular section. We can also see the concrete segments are being installed in this trench, which is now right on the south end of this road, and it's proceeding to the east. And with the trench work that's going on, more excavation, I would expect to see this segmented concrete pipe to continue further to the east, probably along the entire width of the south end. As I mentioned before, you can see there's another section of a lot of Model Ys on this part of the building as well, in that overflow lot and also next to the building. And as I continue to reposition the drone here, we'll look along all of those Model Ys on the left-hand side of the screen and by the base of the building, and also the work that's going on in this section where all of the concrete was recently removed as well. So quite a bit of activity here. So I'm going to prepare to go across the highway one more time, and we'll spend some time on this southwest side where there is a new permit that we discussed at the intro of the video. And this entire section of about 240 acres, or about 97 hectares, is going to be the West Support Facility, which will be a large logistics yard and also more parking. As you can see, the north part of the staging yard has been still in the process of being cleared out. The south end has already been cleared out. And that space next to those white tanks is where those 4 stainless steel tanks that I mentioned on the east side came from. And you can also see that they're widening this section now also on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So all of this is in the process of getting widened. I don't know, but this may be part of that logistics yard right on this particular section, or it may be some of the parking. You can see a lot more of the materials have been delivered here on the north side of the material staging yard as well. As we continue further to the southwest, you can see this is where dirt has been piled up and also is being used to excavate a little bit and then move over to where they are flattening out the hills and ponds. This is a great view. Right in front of the drone is what some of the hills and ponds from the sand and gravel mine used to look like. You can see all the trees in it as well. And then the section that they're working on now used to be as big, if not taller, for the hills. So you can see just how much of the hills have been removed over in this particular section. And crews are continuing doing so. So this is going to be part of that permit, that construction of the West Support Facility that we talked about at the beginning of the video. This is another really good view looking towards the northwest of how this entire section is transforming, and it looks like there's crews working in one of those deeper valleys right now. Eventually all of this will be completely flattened out, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this will look once they are done with the reconfiguring. The river road is the road that you see right underneath the drone, and this forms the southern boundary of this construction project. So anyway, a lot to see, a lot of interesting information and video imagery in this video. Thank you very much for watching and your support, and have a great day.